Yes, there is finally a new Toyota Tundra on the market after 15 years of the first generation, and this is a very interesting design because it has features that I haven't seen on a truck before, specifically in the rear, which I'm going to show you when we jump into Photoshop. What we're going to do in this video, talk about some of the spec and tech of the brand new 2022 Toyota Tundra. Then, of course, we're going to jump into Photoshop. I'm going to compare the old generation with the new generation from the front, the side, and the rear. Talk about what I like, what I find a little bit weird, and also talk about this weird thing in the rear that I haven't seen on a truck before. So the standard powertrain here is a 389 horsepower twin turbocharged 3.4 liter V6, but there is also an available hybrid powertrain that makes 437 horsepower and 583 pound-feet of torque. When the new 2022 Toyota Tundra goes on sale at the end of this year, it will be available in SR, SR5, Limited, Platinum, 1794, and TRD Pro trim levels. These will all feature the 389 horsepower V6 to begin with, because the hybrid won't be available until early or mid 2022. It's kind of hard to believe that the first generation Toyota Tundra was introduced 15 years ago, and during that time it has taken Toyota to come up with the second generation Tundra. Ford and Chevy, for example, have both redesigned their half-ton trucks 3 times respectively. But why replace something that's still a bestseller? If we look at this chart right here, we can see that it was selling well up until the announcement of a new model for 2022. Obviously that will drop the sales because people are waiting to buy the new one. Well, the new Tundra answers the question why we need a new Tundra with all this technology that we have in here. The 2022 Toyota Tundra's new body-on-frame platform will also be used for the next Tacoma and the 4Runner, both of which are due for an update as well. One change that will improve the ride quality on the new truck is that it now rides on coil springs instead of old leaf springs, and this should make for a much smoother ride. This setup is only shared with the Ram 1500 in this segment, and that truck is known for its superior ride comfort compared to, for example, the Ford F-150 and Chevy Silverado, both with the leaf springs in the rear. Toyota didn't want to fall behind when it comes to the interior infotainment either, so the screens here, they decided to go with a 14-inch touchscreen, and that's a lot bigger than Ford and Ram's 12-inch screens and slightly larger than the Chevy Silverado's new 13.4-inch unit. This is of course an option, with the standard screen being still a solid 8 inches. An analog gauge cluster comes standard on these base models of the 2022 Toyota Tundra. However, you can get a high-resolution 12.3-inch digital screen on higher trim levels. Now, let's jump into the design here. Let's talk about this new styling. I'm going to show you the front, the side, and the rear and compare it to the previous generation Tundra. I'll let you know what I think about it, what I like, and what I find odd. These are, of course, different designs for the Tundra depending on what trim and option you choose. For example, the TRD Pro models have the classic Toyota stamped across the grille, and now they also have a LED bar below that's activated when the high beams are on. Alright, so let's have a look at the new Tundra and compare it to the previous generation. What I'm going to do here is have the TRD Pro models of both the 2020 and the 2022 here, or 2021 at the bottom. So the big change here in the front is, of course, the new graphics all over this front end. And I think this front end is huge. It looks massive, specifically with this new grille here that covers basically the entire front end of the truck. It looks like it could swallow a car whole with this open mouth that you have in the front, comparing that to the previous generation where we have a little more of a framing of the front grille. We also had a lot more separation between the two different graphic compartments or areas in the front end. So what I mean by that is you have the top area right here of the front end, which is the headlights, the grille, and so on, and then you have the lower part, which is basically the bumper right here. So if we look at the new one, they kind of blend together, and what that does, in my opinion, is it creates a very vertical front end, and it looks front heavy to me because we don't have enough horizontal lines that breaks up this massive grille that we have in the front. And on top of that, this new bumper design right here, it looks like the bulk of the load, the weight of the front end, hangs in this front bumper here. It doesn't have a separation from it to the top part of the graphics. What I'm gonna do a redesign of the Toyota Tundra here, how I would reduce the front weight of this graphics on my first channel with the Sketch Monkey. If you want to see the redesign on the Sketch Monkey YouTube channel, you can go and check that out if you want to. What I really like about this front end is the treatment of the new LED. What you can see here is that it clearly follows the body lines and the chamfers of the front fender. So if we follow these lines headlights right here, you can see that it goes into the light right here, and the LED itself is a continuation of these chamfers. I think this is a really cool treatment of how you can have LEDs be part of the bodywork itself. If we were to remove this LED, take it out of the body, we would have a big hole there, and you can see that something is missing in the line flow of the design. This is a good implementation of graphic design in combination with the overall shape and line flow of the front end. I love this traditional Toyota lettering that we have in the front end of the TRD Pro here, and since this is I guess it's wider than your regular trucks that we have on the Raptor as well, because regulation says that if you exceed a certain width of your vehicle, you need to have 3 indication lights, positioning lights in the middle of the truck right there, and that looks cool. And then we have, of course, the brand new LED bar right there. It looks like an aftermarket LED bar, but it's actually stock from Toyota themselves. They decided to implement that on the TRD Pro. I think it looks good. It's probably super useful if you go off-road a lot. You need some extra lighting. These turn on with the headlights when you have it on high beam, and you also have some positioning lights down here at the bottom as well. But I really like the overall styling of this. The only problem I have with the front view here is, as I said, we need some separation between the bottom part right here and the top part. Headlights and grille at the top, and then we have the bumper in the bottom. We need to have a separation there of some sort, and this is probably the first time ever that I actually want to have an additional cut line between 2 pieces, that we go somewhere around here to create this separation between the two, and maybe just reduce the size of this massive grille here in the front to this point right here, and have this be bumper colored, or a chamfer that continues from this chamfer right here. I think that would look better, and it would definitely reduce the oversized rear bumper, and it looks like it's the weight is kind of hanging over the front axle when you have this big bulky bumper there in the bottom. And just quickly, just comparing it to the previous generation, you can see just how much lighter it feels. This feels a lot lighter in the front than the new 2022, specifically down here in the bottom, with this bumper hanging down here, and this have a clear separation between the 2 features. So let's jump in and have a look at the side view right here. This is where it gets really interesting when we have a look at the line flow and the shoulder line of the car, because it's completely different from the 2022 compared to the previous generation. The previous generation, we have a clear shoulder line going straight through the car, as you can see right here, from the rear graphics all the way to the front headlights as well. It's a connecting line, which I like, but at the same time, this is a truck, so this segment is different from pretty much any other vehicle segment. You don't really need to have a clear line flow, because you have such clear different compartments in a truck. You have the front, where you have the engine and front axle, and then you have the greenhouse, the cabin, and then you have the bed right here. So these are 3 very different compartments, so it doesn't really have to connect, but if you can connect it in some way, it's going to be beneficial, in my opinion, for the design itself, because they're so different, these styles of boxes, that connecting them somehow with one line that goes something like this that we have down here on the old Tundra, it kind of makes it look better, because it combines all these 3 boxes in a beautiful way. Instead, what we have on the new one, it doesn't look bad, but it's totally different. We have these lines that go above the fender lines like this to kind of emphasize the off-roadiness of this truck, and it looks pretty cool. It looks like it's a little wider than before, at least graphically, and here you can still see just how well the front LED integrates in the design itself and in the existing chamfers that are stamped in the body panels of the car. And new for the 2022 TRD Pro here is that we have a blacked out A-pillar. Not sure how I feel about that, and the reason for that is that this looks like it's just randomly cut here and creating this black piece right here. There isn't really a natural separation between the A-pillar and the rest of the roof here, but I guess that's a matter of taste as well. It looks pretty cool, I guess. It reduces some of the weight in that area of the truck. And I also want to talk about the front bumper here from a side view. You can just see how static this looks, because we have just a big of a chamfer in the top here, like we have on the bottom, and it creates no movement in this weight of the bumper. It creates a very heavy looking bumper, industrial looking thing that weighs down the entire front end. Comparing that to the old generation, which has a smooth line going like this, and then a straight line, and then just a simple dip like this. There's no symmetry like we have in the new one, and if we have a symmetry like this in the old one, that would also create a sort of a heavy looking front end. If I were to pick one front end, I would probably pick the old one, but with the new graphic of the 2022, and that's what I'm gonna do on my other channel, the Sketch Monkey, when I redesign this beast right here. Some other details, it's a lot more chiseled design, the 2022. Just having a look at the greenhouse here, for example, we can have a look at the lines here. We have this angle, we didn't have that before. We just had a little up slope right there there and nothing really clearly defined in the greenhouse on the old one. I think this greenhouse looks a lot more modern than this, that's for sure. I also think that these stamped indents or lines in the fenders look more modern than this, I guess, but I'm still missing this shoulder line that we have in the old Tundra. I think that should be beneficial on the new one as well, since they are so different pieces, all of these three boxes right here. We also have some new cladding on the new Tundra here, TRD Pro, which you can see right here, the black pieces right here, which creates the illusion that the wheelhouses are a lot bigger than they actually are, and that means that I would probably put 35s on this truck to fill out those wheelhouses more. Now let's quickly have a look at the rear view here. I really want to show you this rear bumper here and how special this bumper is specifically for the truck segment. So I've never seen a bumper being this integrated in the body of the design and overall lines and the mass and panels of the truck body. So you see that right here we have this piece being a part of the design itself. Usually what you have when it comes to trucks and vans, they all have the same bumpers that comes from the same supplier, no matter what the brand you have. Chevy, Ford, for example, they still use those suppliers today. When you have a look at the new 2022 models of the F-150 and the Silverado, if you look at those rear bumpers, you see that they come from supplier. You have a massive gap here, usually between the bumper and the body, which you have right here on the old generation Tundra as well. So this is a brand new development in the truck world that I haven't seen before. Overall, I really like how this tailgate is integrated in the body here of the car. However, it does look like it's almost stamped there and it's kind of squeezing the body because we have these lines here going in. It kind of feels like these are under tension right here, and that this is the clamp of the stamp. So it kind of forces the body to wrap around it, if that makes sense. You have these tension lines right here, which only emphasizes that point that I'm making. And then you have this optional camo pattern here on the TRD Pro, which I think looks really cool. The rear end of this, I think, is a lot better executed than the front view of the new 2022. And of course, you have the TRD Pro stamped here in the tailgate as well. Those are my first initial impressions of the new 2022 Toyota Tundra. I'm gonna do the redesign on the Sketch Monkey channel, as I said, so go over there, subscribe, and make sure you check that video out as well.